The road was not marked on any map, and yet the traveler found it anyway, curling like a ribbon of quiet silver through a meadow that shimmered even though no sun was visible. Grass swayed in no wind, and the sky above held the gentle hue of early twilight, as if the day had paused, uncertain whether to continue or sleep. The traveler did not remember when they had begun walking or why their feet felt drawn forward, only that each step felt lighter than the last, as though gravity had been asked to hush. Trees with leaves like translucent paper bowed over the path, their branches humming in low, harmonious tones, not quite a song but not quite silence either. The sound soothed the traveler's thoughts, which had once spun fast and sharp but now turned slow and syrupy, like honey dripping from a wooden spoon. Up ahead, where the hills blurred like brushstrokes on a wet canvas, the traveler saw rooftops, small, rounded shapes covered in moss that glowed faintly with a bioluminescent blush. A village, but unlike any they had known. There were no straight lines here, no sharp edges. The houses seemed to breathe slightly, their walls curving in gentle sighs as though they too were asleep and dreaming. As the traveler stepped closer, a bell rang, not loud, not calling, but simply acknowledging. A slow, deep chime that echoed through the air like a pebble dropped into still water. The traveler stepped over a bridge made of woven branches, strung with tiny lights that flickered in impossible colors, shades that had no names but felt familiar, like distant memories. The water below did not flow but rested, a mirror reflecting not just the village above but the stars that had not yet arrived. At the entrance to the village stood a sign, carved into a pale stone worn soft by time. It read, "Welcome, traveler. Time sleeps here." The traveler reached out to touch the letters, and they felt warm beneath their fingers. The stone pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. They moved forward slowly, as if afraid to wake the air around them. The village greeted them with quiet glances from shuttered windows and the scent of something baking, something sweet and old-fashioned, drifting lazily from a chimney shaped like a seashell. The streets were soft underfoot, not cobbled or paved, but made of some kind of velvet earth that cradled each step. Lamps shaped like glass fruit hung from curved poles, glowing with a warm inner light that shifted gently in hue with every few heartbeats. A cat with fur like mist and eyes like polished amber padded across the road and paused at the traveler's feet, its tail curling into a question mark. It stared for a moment, blinked slowly, and then continued on its way, as if satisfied. There were no people visible, and yet the village did not feel empty. It felt full of breath and presence and slow thoughts moving through stillness. The traveler came to a small round plaza with a single clock tower at its center. The tower was short and round and soft at the edges, and the clock face bore no numbers, only symbols that looked like constellations in motion. The hands of the clock turned so slowly it was impossible to tell if they were moving at all. A voice, soft as a falling feather, drifted from a nearby doorway. "You're just in time," it said, though no one was there. The traveler did not question it. They merely followed the sound, through the arched doorway into a room filled with cushions and gentle lamps and the scent of lavender wrapped in something older, something like rain on stone or the first page of a forgotten book. A woman sat cross-legged on a cushion, her hair silver and coiled like a sleeping fern, her eyes closed. She opened them slowly and smiled. "You've arrived," she said, as though the traveler had always been coming here, from the moment they first dreamed of leaving. You'll want to rest now. The village will take care of the rest. The traveler did not speak, for there seemed no need. Words would have only stirred the stillness, and the stillness was sacred here. The woman rose slowly, like a cloud lifting from the valley floor, and gestured with a hand that shimmered slightly, as though moonlight moved just beneath her skin. She led the traveler through a narrow hallway where the walls were made of softly shifting fabric, each panel breathing in and out, like the sighs of sleeping mountains. The hallway opened into a room filled with beds, not arranged in rows, but scattered like fallen leaves, each one different in shape and texture. Some looked like floating petals, others like woven nests. The traveler chose one without thinking, drawn to a bed that resembled a gently curled shell, its surface smooth and cool, its interior lined with plush moss that exhaled the scent of forgotten lullabies. As they lay down, the bed adjusted itself subtly, cradling every curve in quiet ache, and the room darkened not with night but with a slow, dreamy kind of dusk that carried no weight. Music began, but not from any instrument. It rose from the corners of the room, from beneath the floorboards, from within the air itself, a hum made of stars thinking softly to themselves. The traveler's eyelids grew heavy, though they did not yet close. The ceiling above shifted like water, displaying soft images of memories they didn't know they had. A swing in a field of clock flowers. A fox made of lanterns. Rain falling upward into a cotton sky. The woman was gone, or perhaps never truly there. The bed rocked ever so slightly, as if floating down an unseen stream. And then, sleep. But not the usual kind. This sleep was slow and wide and quiet, like being held in a story that never needed to end. When the traveler awoke, they were no longer in the room. They were sitting on a bench beneath a tree made of polished wind, its leaves fluttering like paper birds. Beside them sat an old man in a coat made of stardust and string. He offered the traveler a cup of something warm, and though they did not drink, they felt comforted by the offering. "The village changes while you sleep," the man said, his voice a gentle rasp, like moss brushing against bark. "Not in shape, but in meaning. Each time you open your eyes, it's slightly more what you need." The traveler nodded, though they weren't sure what they needed, only that the air here made everything feel possible. "The clocks," the man continued, pointing toward the distant tower, "don't keep time the way you think. They tell it what to feel. That one makes morning soft. That one stretches the quiet between heartbeats. And that one," he pointed to a small, flower-shaped clock on a windowsill, "lets people forget what they were hurrying toward." The traveler looked around and noticed that people were now visible. Not many, and never in a rush. A girl carrying a bowl of glowing seeds. A couple dancing without music on a rooftop. A baker placing loaves on a floating tray that drifted door to door like a sleepy butterfly. The man stood, brushing starlight from his lap. "You'll find your room again when you're ready," he said. "Or not. It's always waiting, even when it isn't there." And with that, he wandered off, disappearing into a doorway shaped like an open hand. The traveler rose and walked slowly down a lane that curved like a question. Every turn revealed something new. A staircase that led into a cloud, a tree whose fruit whispered poetry, a cat reading a book with its eyes half closed. They passed a fountain where the water flowed upward, then sideways, then paused altogether before beginning again, rearranging itself into shapes the traveler couldn't name but understood. They stopped at a small kiosk where an old woman was sewing tiny garments from threads of sunlight. She looked up and said, "You have kind eyes. Would you like to trade a memory for a moment?" The traveler hesitated. "Just a small one," she assured. "A pebble from your river of thoughts. You won't even notice it missing." The traveler nodded, and the woman reached forward gently, tapping their forehead with a single finger. A brief warmth. A flicker of something forgotten. In return, she handed them a folded scrap of sky, still warm from the sun. "Open it when you feel lost," she said, and returned to her stitching without another word. The traveler slipped the folded scrap of sky into their pocket, though it had no weight. As they walked, the village unfolded like a dream that knew it was being remembered. Buildings rearranged themselves with soft, polite creaks, their doorways shifting just slightly so that they always seemed to face you, inviting and patient. A gentle mist drifted across the cobbled path. Though cobbled wasn't quite the right word, for the stones beneath their feet were shaped like tiny moons and suns, each one glowing faintly beneath their steps. Time did not pass here. It curled, like steam rising from a mug, sometimes lifting, sometimes lingering, always warm. The traveler passed a bookstore with no roof, its shelves open to the slow-turning sky. A young man with feathers in his hair sat behind a floating counter, humming. His books flapped their covers like wings and rearranged themselves midair. "Looking for anything?" he asked, not looking up. The traveler shook their head gently. "Just walking." The man smiled. "That's the best kind of reading." And the books hummed in agreement. Onward they went, past a garden that grew dreams instead of flowers. Each bloom shimmered with translucent color, and when the wind touched them, they whispered memories not yet lived. The traveler bent down near one and heard laughter, distant and soft, like a child hiding behind a curtain of time. They moved on before the moment could become too sharp. Everything here remained just out of reach of urgency. The path turned downward, curling into a hollow where the trees were taller and wore shawls of mist. Lanterns hung from their branches like sleeping fireflies, and below them sat a circular table with no chairs. Around it stood 6 figures, robed in robes that shifted from cloud to velvet to flame depending on how you looked at them. They each held an hourglass, but none of the sand moved. One of the figures turned to the traveler and nodded. "Would you like to join us?" they asked, their voice neither young nor old. The traveler stepped forward and stood silently at the edge of the table. "This is the Council of Still Hours," the figure explained. "We do not make decisions. We simply listen to the silence between choices." Another added, "Time speaks loudest when we do not speak at all." The traveler closed their eyes and felt the hush settle around them, deep and comforting. Within it, they could hear the slow rhythm of leaves falling, clouds drifting, dreams unwinding like thread. When they opened their eyes again, the figures were gone, the table had dissolved into mist, and the path continued upward once more, as if it had simply paused to allow the traveler a moment of deep stillness. The sky had darkened, not to night but to a twilight that cradled the village in velvet light. Lanterns now glowed more boldly, and soft music wandered the streets like invisible cats. The traveler wandered past a pond that reflected not the sky but their own thoughts. Each ripple another echo, another soft unfolding of memory. They saw themselves as a child, hands full of fireflies. As a teenager, lying beneath the stars with questions too big for words. As an adult, hurrying through places that never asked for stillness. The pond shimmered, and the images softened into light. A bridge arched gently over the water, its railings strung with bells that rang only when you forgot something important. The traveler crossed it, listening for silence, and heard only peace. At the far end, an open door waited in the air itself. Not set into a building or wall, just standing there, glowing faintly with possibility. The traveler stepped through and found themselves in a room filled with floating globes. Each one held a small version of the village, in different colors, different seasons, different dreams. A voice spoke, the same one from their arrival. Time doesn't move here. It dreams. And in its dreaming, it becomes all things. The traveler touched one of the globes and felt a soft hum. Inside, a version of themselves danced on rooftops with the girl carrying glowing seeds. Another globe showed them reading poetry aloud to the cat who now wore glasses and a tiny scarf. A third showed them asleep in the round plaza, cradled by the chiming of the constellation clock. The globe spun slowly, weightless as sighs. The traveler stepped away and the room responded, fading gently into the scent of rain and candlelight. The traveler found themselves back on a narrow path lined with moonflowers, their petals open wide despite the absence of moonlight. Each flower pulsed gently, as if breathing in tandem with the land itself. The petals gave off a quiet glow that didn't so much illuminate as reassure. Ahead, a doorway leaned against nothing, its frame carved from driftwood and bone-white stone. Hanging from its lintel was a wind chime that rang with no wind, producing tones like soft questions. The traveler passed through the doorway and into a small circular room filled with clocks of every shape and size. They ticked and talked at different tempos, some impossibly slow, others barely audible, and a few that seemed to tick backward, though always with kindness. A woman in a long coat made of stitched-together shadows turned toward them. Her eyes were closed, but she seemed to see everything. "You're right on time," she said, as though that phrase belonged only here, in this room. "Not early, not late. Just exactly when." The traveler nodded, unsure what they had arrived for but willing to trust the rhythm of it. The woman gestured toward a clock shaped like a bird's nest. Inside it, instead of hands, small feathers drifted in lazy spirals. "This one measures rest," she said. "It's been waiting to remember you." The traveler reached out, and the feathers stirred. A sensation washed over them, one of warmth, of lying in soft grass beneath slow clouds, of being heard by the world even when silent. The woman smiled. "You may carry it with you now," she said, and though nothing changed physically, the traveler felt lighter, as if some unseen weight had been traded for a quieter kind of knowing. They left the clockroom and stepped into a market where no one sold anything. Stalls were filled with jars of laughter, folded paper boats of forgotten ideas, and bottles of captured moonlight offered freely to anyone who needed them. A tall man with a beard made of petals handed the traveler a spool of silver thread. "For stitching moments together," he said gently. "When things begin to unravel." The traveler accepted it with a small bow, and the thread shimmered like memories in the wind. Deeper into the market they walked, past tents where stories curled in the air like smoke, being told and retold by people whose voices drifted in and out like waves. One tent was empty but filled with music. Another held only mirrors that showed dreams instead of reflections. The traveler stepped into a tent stitched from silk clouds and found a soft circle of cushions surrounding a book so large it seemed to breathe. The book opened as they approached, its pages turning slowly of their own accord. On each page, delicate illustrations moved gently, a fox sleeping inside a clock, a ship made of velvet sailing across the night, a tower with no stairs that grew taller each time someone forgot it. The traveler sat and watched the pages turn, feeling the rhythm of the book match the rhythm of their heart. It told no story, and yet it told all of them at once. When they stood again, the book closed itself and exhaled a sound like wind through pine needles. The tent faded as they left, dissolving into the colors of a sunset that had no sun. Beyond the market was a grove of trees with bark like brushed metal and leaves that whispered names. Some names were familiar, though the traveler couldn't place them. Others felt like dreams they hadn't had yet. In the center of the grove stood a tree much older than the rest, its roots thick and spiraling deep into the earth. The traveler approached and placed a hand on the trunk. A warmth spread through their palm and into their chest, and they heard a voice, not from the tree, but from within. It said nothing in words, only feelings. Rest. Belonging. Return. The traveler sat at the base of the tree, leaning back until their thoughts slowed to the pace of the roots. They didn't know how long they sat there. Time made no demands. When they finally rose, the grove had changed. The paths curved differently, and the sky above was the soft color of a held breath. The traveler followed a newly formed path that shimmered faintly with dust from unseen stars. The air around them carried the scent of parchment and warm stones, like the feeling of returning to a story you didn't know you'd forgotten. Ahead, a small building shaped like an open book beckoned. Its walls were pages, fluttering gently even without wind, and its roof was stitched from twilight. Inside, the room was quiet, filled with low shelves where objects rested instead of books. Each one a memory offered for safekeeping. A wooden comb with a note tied to its teeth. A pebble carved into the shape of a teardrop. A broken watch still ticking softly. An old woman stood in the corner, organizing jars filled with silence, each labeled with the name of a moment. She turned to the traveler and said, "Take one if you need it. Leave one if you can." The traveler paused before selecting a small glass orb. Inside, a soft light pulsed like a sleeping heartbeat. They held it close and felt a peace settle into their breath. In return, they placed the feathered hour from earlier on a cushion by the door, and the woman nodded in approval, her eyes closing with a smile. Back on the path, the village had grown quieter still, though never lonely. The kind of quiet that wraps around you like a favorite blanket. The traveler wandered past a stream that ran uphill, its surface dappled with floating candles that never burned down. Each candle whispered a story into the water, and the water carried those whispers to places that needed them. They passed a field of umbrellas growing from the earth, their handles rooted in the soil. Some were open, catching falling snow that melted into laughter. Others were closed, waiting patiently for the right kind of rain. A man in a coat of woven dreams stood among them, tipping his hat. "Every umbrella is a promise," he said. "Of shelter, of change, of something passing gently overhead." The traveler nodded, continuing on, and the umbrellas bowed as they passed. Ahead stood a tower made of woven glass, its walls transparent but shifting, showing different rooms with every blink. As the traveler approached, the door opened soundlessly, revealing a spiral staircase where each step chimed softly like wine through chimes tuned for rest. They climbed slowly, each step drawing breath into their bones. The higher they went, the more distant everything below became, not in space, but in urgency. At the top, a round chamber opened to the sky, but the sky was not the one above. It was a sky of dreams, spinning slowly, filled with constellations shaped like feelings: hope, quiet, belonging. In the center of the chamber stood a chair made of time, woven from strands of sunset, shadows of old laughter, and threads pulled from the spaces between heartbeats. The traveler sat. As they did, the sky above responded. Stars turned. Clouds whispered. Somewhere far away, a bell rang once, then stopped. The chair adjusted itself with a sigh, and from beneath the traveler's feet, light began to rise, not bright or fast, but soft and slow, like warm tea steeping through fog. It curled around their legs, through their arms, into their lungs, until they breathed it in fully. And then they saw it. Not with eyes, but with stillness. The village was not a place. It was a state of remembering. A moment held open forever. A place where the heart could finally hear itself thinking, slowly, sweetly. The traveler closed their eyes, not to sleep, but to listen. And in that listening, the village exhaled. Time stretched out like a cat in sunlight. The wind paused to watch. Somewhere, a child sang a note that would take an hour to finish. The traveler smiled. They had never truly arrived, and they would never truly leave. Here, in the place where time sleeps, everything was exactly enough. When the traveler descended the spiral staircase, the village greeted them with soft changes. The paths had curved into new patterns, like water tracing new grooves in sand. The houses seemed to have leaned closer together, their rooftops touching as if whispering secrets to one another. Lamps floated lower, and the colors of the air had shifted slightly, tinted with hues that tasted like peace. A child passed by pulling a kite made of whispering leaves. The kite made no sound, but the space around it grew quieter still, as though the air leaned in to listen. The traveler followed no path in particular, moving with the gentle tug of whatever moment appeared next. A shop with windows shaped like eyes blinked open as they approached. Inside, the air was thick with scent, orange peel, old paper, the first breath after rain. The shopkeeper, a tall figure whose face was hidden behind a veil of glimmering dust, handed the traveler a key with no explanation. "This unlocks only what's already open," they said softly, and turned back to polishing a compass with no needle. The traveler took the key and held it loosely, feeling its gentle warmth pulse in rhythm with their own heartbeat. As they stepped outside again, the wind shifted. It wasn't a gust, but something more intimate. A sigh of the earth, or perhaps a memory exhaling. A flock of birds drifted overhead, not flying but floating in slow spirals, their feathers trailing strands of twilight. One dropped a single quill, and it landed silently in the traveler's palm. It shimmered for a moment, then melted into a thread of silver and wrapped itself gently around their wrist like a promise. They continued through an orchard where the trees hummed lullabies. The fruit hung heavy and glowed faintly, pulsing in slow harmony. Each tree bore different feelings: calm, wonder, forgiveness, awe. The traveler stopped beside one that radiated belonging and touched a branch. A soft tingling spread through their chest, and for a moment, they remembered every place they'd ever felt safe. That warmth followed them as they wandered into a courtyard where the ground was made of woven blankets and cushions piled high. People lay scattered like autumn leaves, eyes closed, breathing in time with the sky. A large clock at the center had no hands, only a soft light that brightened and dimmed slowly, like the rhythm of the sea. The traveler lay down without hesitation, the fabric folding around them, reshaping to cradle their body. They gazed upward and watched stars blink into existence above. Not the cold, sharp stars of distant galaxies, but soft ones, gentle as candlelight, each one shaped like a story half remembered. Somewhere nearby, someone was singing, but the words were made of colors and scents, not sounds. The traveler breathed deeply, and with every exhale, they felt more present. Not just in the village, but in their own body, their own quiet. After a while, or perhaps no time at all, they sat up and the cushions uncurled beneath them, gently lifting them back to their feet. The path led to a doorway standing alone in a garden of still wind. A bell hung from the frame, swaying slightly despite the motionless air. The traveler stepped through and into a small circular chamber with no ceiling. The sky above swirled slowly, like cream in tea. Around the chamber, niches in the walls held glowing orbs. Some bright, others dim, all pulsing at their own rhythm. A voice, not a person's, but the voice of the place itself, spoke gently. "These are all the moments you've forgotten you needed. Would you like to carry one with you?" The traveler reached out without knowing why and chose a softly glowing orb the color of quiet laughter. It dissolved into their fingers and settled inside, becoming part of their breath. They did not feel changed, only remembered. Outside again, the sky had shifted once more into a soft golden shade that did not belong to morning or evening. A liminal glow. The traveler walked on, no destination, no purpose. Just the village unfolding, moment by gentle moment, like a story that dreamed of never ending. The traveler wandered without question, led not by thought but by the rhythm of the air around them. Even the breeze here moved with intention, not to disturb but to soothe, as if each gust had been trained to lull rather than wake. They passed under arches of woven vines where glowing moths perched like pearls, their wings fluttering with the tempo of resting hearts. At the base of one arch sat a clockmaker without clocks. Instead, he shaped time into small sculptures, spirals, waves, petals, that glowed faintly and melted away when held too long. He looked up as the traveler passed and offered a nod that felt like a blessing. "It's not the shape of time that matters," he murmured. "It's the softness of it." The traveler moved on, through a corridor of trees that leaned together at their tops, forming a tunnel where thoughts felt slower, sleepier. Light filtered through the branches in gentle dapples, creating soft, moving constellations on the moss below. Each footstep made no sound, yet the earth beneath them seemed to hum in agreement. A fox passed them, made entirely of paper pages, its eyes ink blots, its tail flowing like a loose ribbon. It paused to look at the traveler, then continued on, its paws leaving behind faint lines of poetry that faded before they could be read. The traveler followed the path until it opened into a clearing filled with low, slow-moving fog that clung to the ground like a memory refusing to fade. In the center stood a table made of sleet-polished wood, surrounded by empty chairs of every size and shape. The chairs seemed to watch. A teapot steamed gently at the center, though no one had poured it. The traveler sat in the smallest chair, which fit them perfectly, and as soon as they did, a cup appeared before them. It filled itself, not with tea, but with the scent of things remembered fondly, a warm blanket, a hand held in quiet comfort, the breath of a pet asleep nearby. They didn't drink, but they held the cup and felt its warmth seep into their fingers. Around the clearing, the fog began to shift. Not away, but into shapes, gentle silhouettes of moments long gone but still cherished. A face that once smiled at them. A song hummed while drifting off to sleep. A sunrise watched through tear-blurred eyes. None of it hurt. Here, even memory had been softened, its sharp edges dulled by kindness. After a while, the traveler stood, placing the cup on the table. The chairs seemed to nod in farewell, and the path ahead parted the mist with care. They walked onward and found themselves at the edge of a great, silent lake. The surface was like brushed glass, undisturbed, though the sky above it was filled with floating lanterns that pulsed like dreams. A single boat waited at the shore, made of curved wood and stitched silk. It had no oars. The traveler stepped in and sat, and the boat pushed off with a sigh, drifting soundlessly across the water. The lake did not reflect the sky but something else, memories that hadn't happened yet. The traveler watched as shapes bloomed in the water, a hallway filled with candlelight, a field of mirrors that showed feelings instead of faces, a book bound in feathers. The boat moved slowly, respectfully, as though unwilling to wake anything resting below. On the far shore stood a figure cloaked in fog and moonlight. They reached out as the boat neared, not to pull the traveler in, but to steady them, like a friend waiting on a quiet dock. "You've gone very far," the figure said, their voice like pages turning. "And there is still farther to go, if you wish." The traveler nodded. "Then rest a while," the figure said, stepping aside to reveal a bench carved from time itself, ringed like a tree's cross-section, showing the layers of dreams that had come before. The traveler sat. The bench cradled their weariness like it had been waiting just for them. Nearby, the wind told stories to the tall reeds, and the reeds nodded in slow agreement. The traveler rested on the bench carved from rings of time, feeling the slow pulse of the village's heartbeat beneath them. The air was thick with the scent of soft earth and distant rain, mingled with something indefinably sweet, like the memory of a smile you thought you had forgotten. Around them, the reeds swayed without wind, whispering stories in a language made of sighs and forgotten dreams. The traveler closed their eyes and let those whispers drift into their mind, soft as feathers landing on still water. When they opened them again, the sky above had shifted to a hue between twilight and dawn, a color that held the promise of rest without urgency. Rising slowly, the traveler continued along a winding path edged with glowing stones, their light warm and steady, neither bright nor dim, like the steady thrum of a calm heartbeat. The path led into a grove where the trees' branches were tangled in long threads of moonlight, each thread shimmering with a quiet magic. There, sitting quietly beneath the branches, was a small fox with fur that seemed woven from twilight shadows. It looked up and regarded the traveler with eyes that held galaxies, deep and endless and kind. The fox stood and padded forward, then looked back, inviting the traveler to follow. Together, they walked through the grove, the fox's footsteps silent, the traveler's thoughts slowing until they matched the pace of the world around them. The trees whispered lullabies, their leaves brushing against one another with the softness of sighs. In the distance, a bell chimed once, soft and round, like a heartbeat echoing through the air. The fox led the traveler to a small clearing where a pool of still water reflected the stars, stars that had not yet risen in any sky the traveler had ever known. Kneeling, the fox dipped a paw into the pool, sending ripples that glowed like spilled stardust. The traveler looked into the water and saw reflections not of themselves but of moments they might yet live. Quiet mornings wrapped in mist, evenings filled with gentle laughter, dreams unfolding without haste. The water's surface shimmered, inviting them to step closer, to let go of the weight of waking life. The traveler reached out, fingers barely brushing the cool surface, and felt a wave of calm wash over them. The fox curled at their feet, its tail wrapped softly around their ankles, a guardian in this place where time chose to rest. As the stars above blinked slowly, the traveler understood. This village was a haven not just for wandering feet but for wandering hearts. It was a place to forget the rush and remember the pause. To breathe without hurry. To dream with open eyes. The wind carried a soft melody, notes floating like feathers on air, weaving a tapestry of quiet wonder. The traveler sat by the pool until the edges of their thoughts softened and blurred, until the village's gentle rhythm became their own. When they finally rose, the fox stood and stretched, then disappeared into the shadows of the grove, leaving only a faint glimmer behind. The traveler walked onward, each step a slow unfolding, a gentle unwrapping of the self. The village embraced them like a lullaby sung just for one, and the world outside felt a little farther away, like a dream fading softly at dawn. The traveler found themselves moving through a gentle haze, where the edges of the village blurred like ink in water. The path beneath their feet was cushioned, not with earth or stone, but with something lighter, like the memory of a sigh. Around them, the houses leaned closer together, their windows aglow with soft light that flickered like candle flames swaying in an unseen breeze. The scent of warm bread and honey lingered in the air, mingling with the faint aroma of lavender and rain-washed stone. As they walked, the traveler noticed the village clock tower once more, its face still free of numbers but now shimmering with delicate constellations that twirled slowly in a dance without rhythm. The traveler paused, feeling the gentle pull of time's dreamlike embrace, a moment suspended between heartbeat and breath. Nearby, an old woman with hair like spun silver sat by a window, knitting threads of moonlight into a scarf that seemed to glow with the warmth of forgotten nights. She smiled softly and beckoned the traveler closer. "Would you like to rest?" she asked, her voice as smooth as velvet and as calm as a quiet sea. The traveler nodded, and she offered a cup of tea that smelled of wild herbs and starlit meadows. Taking the cup, the traveler felt a warmth spread through their fingers and into their chest, a quiet comfort that whispered of home even in a place so strange. The old woman's eyes twinkled with knowing. "Here, time is a story told slowly," she said. "Each moment a page, each breath a sentence. And sometimes, the story is best when it lingers." The traveler sipped the tea and felt their thoughts soften, their worries folding inward like petals at dusk. They sat beside the woman, watching as the village around them shifted with quiet grace, the way shadows lengthen and fold into the night. A gentle breeze carried the laughter of children playing far away, though no children were visible. The traveler closed their eyes and breathed deeply, letting the stillness cradle them. When they opened them again, the scene had changed. They were no longer outside but inside a room filled with soft pillows and warm blankets, bathed in the glow of a hearth that burned with blue flames. A cat curled on the windowsill, purring a song that vibrated through the bones like a lullaby. The traveler lay down among the cushions, the texture soft and inviting, and felt the gentle embrace of the village wrap around their shoulders like a familiar shawl. Outside the window, the sky shimmered with slow-moving clouds, casting shifting shadows that seemed to dance in time with the traveler's breathing. Somewhere far off, a bell chimed a single note, rich and warm, carrying with it a sense of welcome and belonging. The traveler drifted toward sleep, their thoughts folding into dreams as soft and endless as the village itself. The traveler awoke to a world that felt both familiar and entirely new. The sky above was painted with hues of gentle rose and soft amber, a dawn that never hurried or demanded. Around them, the village pulsed quietly with life, a slow, breathing presence that welcomed them as though they had always belonged. They rose from their resting place and wandered toward the village square, where the clock tower stood tall, its face now shimmering with a delicate web of starlight and silver threads. The hands moved imperceptibly, marking not hours but moments, each one a soft heartbeat in the fabric of the village's dream. The plaza was scattered with soft cushions and low tables, each holding delicate cups of steam that smelled like stories waiting to be told. The traveler settled onto a cushion near a small fountain whose water did not flow but hovered in gentle swirls, catching light like captured dreams. As they watched, the water shaped itself into faint images. A child chasing fireflies, a boat sailing through clouds, a hand reaching out in quiet hope. A voice, warm and kind, spoke softly beside them. "You are learning the language of stillness," it said. Turning, the traveler saw a figure clad in robes woven from twilight and morning mist. Their eyes held the calm of distant stars, and their smile was a gentle invitation. Here, time does not rush. It listens. The traveler nodded, feeling the truth of the words settle deep inside. They closed their eyes, letting the soft sounds of the village wash over them, the hum of unseen music, the rustle of leaves that whispered secrets, the distant chiming of clocks that told no time. When they opened their eyes again, the plaza had transformed. Lanterns floated upwards, their light flickering softly like fireflies set free. The traveler rose and followed them as they drifted slowly toward the horizon, each lantern carrying a whispered wish, a forgotten dream, a hope cradled gently in light. As the lanterns disappeared into the velvet sky, the traveler felt a peace bloom within, a quiet knowing that here, in this village where time sleeps, all things are possible, and all rest is sacred. They turned and walked slowly down a winding path lined with trees that bent like arches, their branches heavy with glowing blossoms that shimmered like stars caught in a soft rain. The village wrapped around them like a lullaby sung just for one, a story that never truly ends. The traveler smiled softly, feeling the gentle pulse of the village beneath their feet, the slow, endless heartbeat of time at rest. The traveler continued along the winding path, each step falling like a quiet drumbeat in the stillness. The trees overhead whispered in languages older than words, their leaves shimmering with a soft light that shifted colors like a fading dream. Occasionally, a gentle breeze carried scents of rain and honey, mingling with the warmth of the earth beneath bare feet. The path opened into a small clearing where a carousel stood, not of horses or animals, but of light and shadow. It spun slowly, the figures blurring into shapes of clouds, stars, and soft laughter. A childless swing hung nearby, moving slightly despite the lack of wind, inviting the traveler to sit. They settled onto the swing and felt it cradle them gently as it rocked in a slow, perfect rhythm, like a heartbeat stretched into eternity. Around the clearing, lanterns floated in midair, glowing softly with a light that seemed to breathe. They pulsed in time with the swing's motion, each flicker a quiet promise of rest and renewal. As the traveler swung, the edges of the village seemed to dissolve into soft haze, and the sky above shifted into a twilight sprinkled with silver dust. In the distance, the chiming of a bell rang out, slow and soothing, its tones wrapping around the traveler like a warm shawl. The scent of fresh-baked bread drifted gently from a nearby bakery that appeared at the edge of the clearing, its windows glowing with golden light. Inside, figures moved softly, their actions unhurried and kind. The traveler imagined stepping inside, the warmth of the oven and the smell of yeast welcoming them like an old friend. Yet they remained on the swing, feeling the slow rhythm pull their thoughts into calm, gentle waves. The village was a place without hurry, a place where time spread wide and soft, folding in on itself like a feather settling on a still pond. The traveler breathed in deeply, filling their lungs with the peacefulness that saturated the air. With each exhale, they felt their worries drift away, dissolving into the cool night. The swing slowed, then stopped, and the traveler stood, feeling lighter, as though some unseen burden had been lifted. They looked back toward the village, glowing faintly beneath a sky that twinkled with countless stars, stars that whispered stories of rest and dreams. The traveler knew this was a place to return to whenever the world outside grew too loud or fast. Here, time slept. Here, hearts could rest. The traveler left the clearing and wandered into a garden where flowers bloomed in impossible colors, hues that seemed to hum softly when touched by light. Each petal shimmered with a delicate glow, as if capturing tiny fragments of dreams and hopes. Among the blooms, a gentle stream trickled, its water sparkling with the reflection of unseen stars. The traveler knelt beside the stream, cupping their hands to catch the cool liquid. It tasted faintly of forgotten lullabies and quiet promises, filling them with a calm that settled deep in their bones. Near the stream stood a willow tree, its branches heavy with lanterns shaped like tears of moonlight. The traveler reached up to touch one, feeling the soft warmth radiate through their fingers. The lantern flickered gently, casting shifting shadows that danced like whispers on the ground. As the traveler continued through the garden, they noticed paths that twisted and turned like ribbons, each leading to secret places where silence was a presence as real as any person. They found a bench carved from ancient stone, worn smooth by countless years of quiet rest. Sitting down, the traveler felt the cool surface beneath them steady their breath, grounding them in the gentle now. Above, the sky shimmered with slow-moving clouds shaped like drifting memories, some bright and vivid, others soft and fading, all blending into a slow, endless story. The air was filled with the faint sound of music, not from instruments but from the village itself. A soft hum woven from sighs, heartbeats, and the rustling of leaves. The traveler closed their eyes, letting the melody wrap around them like a warm shawl. Moments stretched and folded into one another, time losing its sharp edges and becoming a smooth, flowing current. When the traveler opened their eyes, they saw a figure approaching, draped in robes of twilight and silver threads. The figure smiled gently, their eyes reflecting the calm of endless nights. "You have traveled far through dreams," they said softly. "And now, the village welcomes you home." The traveler rose, feeling the weight of that welcome settle like a gentle embrace. Together, they walked toward a house at the edge of the garden, a house with walls of woven light and a door that opened into a soft glow. Inside, the traveler found a room filled with pillows and blankets, all inviting rest. They lay down, the soft fabrics cradling them like the village itself. Outside, the night deepened, stars blinking slowly as if watching over a world where time had learned to sleep. The traveler's eyes fluttered closed as the room seemed to breathe around them, the soft folds of blankets and pillows molding perfectly to their form. Outside the window, the village pulsed quietly under a sky thick with stars that blinked like slow heartbeats, each one a story told without words. The air carried a faint melody, a lullaby made of distant wind chimes and whispered promises, wrapping the traveler in a cocoon of gentle sound. In the silence between breaths, the traveler felt themselves dissolve into the space, becoming part of the village's soft rhythm, its endless dream. Time here was no longer a river rushing to the sea but a lake held still, reflecting the slow dance of light and shadow, memory and hope. As dreams began to unfold behind their closed eyelids, the traveler drifted through scenes that shimmered like mist. They wandered through fields where flowers sang in colors beyond sight, rivers that flowed backward into forgotten moments, and skies filled with floating lanterns carrying wishes both made and unspoken. They saw faces that smiled without urgency, voices that spoke in the language of silence, and footsteps that left trails of stardust instead of dust. When the traveler opened their eyes again, they found themselves seated beside a gentle fire that did not burn but glowed softly with warmth and light. Around the fire, figures gathered, friends and strangers, memories and dreams, their faces serene and inviting. The traveler felt no need for words, only the comfort of shared presence. The fire's glow wrapped around them all, weaving a blanket of quiet connection that held each soul gently within its folds. As the fire's light pulsed slowly, the traveler understood that this was the heart of the village, a place where time did not hurry, where rest was not an end but a beginning. They felt a deep peace settle inside, and knowing that they were exactly where they needed to be, held in a moment that stretched softly without end. The village breathed with them, slow and steady, a lullaby sung to the world in colors, sounds, and silences. And as night deepened, the traveler closed their eyes once more, sinking into sleep that was warm, wide, and endless. The traveler awoke slowly, the soft light of dawn filtering through curtains woven from morning mist. The air in the room was cool yet comforting, carrying the scent of dew-kissed grass and distant wood smoke. Stretching gently, the traveler rose and moved toward a window that framed the village waking beneath a sky brushed with pale pink and gold. Outside, the village stirred with a gentle hum, a slow, steady pulse that felt less like movement and more like breathing. The cobblestone path shimmered faintly as if dusted with starlight still clinging from the night before. The traveler stepped outside, feeling the soft earth beneath bare feet, cool and welcoming. They wandered through quiet streets where flowers nodded sleepily in the gentle breeze, their petals still moist with night's tears. A soft melody drifted through the air, carried by unseen voices weaving lullabies between the houses. The traveler paused beside a fountain where water poured upward, defying gravity in slow, graceful arcs. The surface caught the dawn light and fractured it into sparkling rainbows that danced like fireflies. Nearby, a cat with eyes like molten gold stretched and padded silently across the stones, brushing past the traveler's legs like a fleeting dream. The traveler smiled, the corners of their lips lifting in a way that felt like remembering. The village felt alive yet timeless, a place where every moment lingered just long enough to be savored. As they walked, the traveler came upon a small bridge arched over a stream that sang quietly to itself. The bridge was made of smooth glass, its surface reflecting the world like a mirror, but the reflection was softened, as if viewed through a veil of gentle haze. Crossing it, the traveler noticed the world seemed to sigh in relief, the air thickening with peace and stillness. On the far side, a garden stretched out, filled with trees that bore fruit of soft light. The traveler reached out and plucked a glowing orb from a branch. It pulsed gently in their hand, warm and alive with quiet energy. Holding it close, they felt the threads of the village's dream weaving into their own. The sky above began to blush deeper pinks and soft purples, a slow promise of day unfolding without rush or demand. The traveler closed their eyes, breathing deeply, letting the peacefulness settle like a soft blanket wrapped around their heart. Here, in the village where time sleeps, every moment was a gift, and every breath a lullaby sung softly into the soul. The traveler wandered deeper into the garden, each step weaving them further into the village's gentle embrace. The trees around them whispered quiet secrets, their leaves shimmering like tiny stars caught in a gentle breeze that carried no chill. Between the branches, soft light danced, neither the harsh glare of day nor the sharp darkness of night, but a soothing glow that wrapped everything in a soft, calming veil. The traveler's fingers brushed against a vine, its texture like silk spun from moonlight and shadow. As they touched it, a gentle warmth spread through their hand, rippling slowly up their arm and settling softly in their chest. Nearby, a stream murmured, its waters flowing backward in slow arcs, tracing patterns like ribbons in the air before settling again into the gentle song of moving dreams. The traveler knelt beside it, dipping fingers into the cool liquid. Each droplet carried a whisper, a story half remembered, a moment unhurried. Around the bend, the garden opened into a clearing filled with cushions of moss and petals, soft places to rest for weary souls. The traveler settled down, sinking into the embrace of the earth beneath. Above, the sky swirled with shifting constellations, their shapes fluid and alive, figures of whispered hopes, silent wishes, and quiet kindnesses. A gentle melody rose from the earth itself, humming softly like a heartbeat in tune with the village's own pulse. Time here was a soft thing, bending and folding like light through a prism, catching all the colors of stillness and peace. The traveler closed their eyes, allowing the music to wash over them, each note a thread weaving them deeper into the fabric of the dream. As the melody deepened, faces emerged in the shadows, friends long past, strangers yet to be met, all sharing in the quiet comfort of this place where time slept. They reached out hands not to grasp but to touch lightly, connecting without words. The traveler felt a gentle pulse, a flow of calm that moved through them like a slow river of light. When the music faded, the traveler opened their eyes to find the clearing bathed in soft moonlight, though no moon hung in the sky. The light was gentle, protective, a promise that this place would hold them always, no matter where the waking world might lead. Rising slowly, the traveler felt the peace settle deep within, a quiet strength blossoming like a flower opening in slow motion. With one last look around the garden, they turned toward the path that would lead them back to the heart of the village, where the slow dance of time and rest continued without end. The traveler followed the soft path, their footsteps light against the moss-covered stones, the village unfolding around them like a slowly turning page in a book written by dreams. The air was thick with the scent of lavender and soft rain, a perfume that wrapped around their senses like a whispered lullaby. As they walked, the buildings seemed to shift subtly, walls made of woven light and shadow, roofs that hummed faint melodies, windows glowing with the soft pulse of untold stories. Ahead, a gentle stream sparkled with liquid silver, winding its way through the village like a ribbon of stardust. The traveler knelt by the water's edge, dipping a hand in to feel the cool, smooth flow. The stream sang softly, its melody threading through the air like a quiet song of rest. Nearby, a small bridge arched gracefully over the water, its handrails wrapped in delicate vines that glimmered with dewdrops catching the faint light. Crossing the bridge, the traveler entered a meadow where tall grass swayed without wind, bending in waves of color. Soft blues, gentle purples, and silvery whites that shimmered like whispers caught on a breeze. In the center of the meadow stood a single tree, its branches heavy with glowing blossoms that pulsed with the rhythm of a slow heartbeat. The traveler approached and reached out to touch a flower. The petals were cool and soft, and as their fingers brushed the surface, a wave of calm spread through their body, quieting every restless thought. Around them, the meadow seemed to breathe, each blade of grass rising and falling like the chest of the earth itself. The traveler sat beneath the tree, leaning back against its sturdy trunk. Above, the sky shimmered with gentle colors that shifted and changed like a slow-moving dream, clouds curling softly like smoke from a distant fire. The world felt wide and still, a place held in the hush between heartbeats. The traveler closed their eyes, breathing deeply, letting the peace of the village settle inside like a gentle tide. Time stretched and folded, becoming a soft fabric woven from the threads of stillness and rest. When they opened their eyes, the village around them was aglow with a gentle light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, wrapping them in a quiet embrace. Here, in this place where time sleeps, the traveler knew they had found a home for their wandering soul. The traveler rose from beneath the glowing tree, feeling the lingering warmth pulse gently through their limbs. The village seemed to respond in kind, the light in windows brightening softly as if welcoming them deeper into its embrace. They wandered along a narrow lane paved with smooth river stones that shimmered faintly beneath their feet, each stone edged with faint patterns like ancient runes telling stories of rest and renewal. Alongside the path, lanterns hung from slender branches, swaying ever so slightly, casting a tender glow that danced across the walls of nearby homes. The traveler paused before a door made of woven reeds and glass, its surface shifting like liquid light. Upon touching the door, it opened silently to reveal a room filled with soft cushions arranged in concentric circles around a small fire that burned with pale blue flames. A figure sat by the fire, cloaked in fabrics that shimmered like twilight, their face serene and welcoming. "You have come far," they said, voice like the hush of falling snow. "And still, there is more to rest." The traveler nodded and joined the circle, feeling the cushions yield like gentle waves beneath them. Around the fire, shadows flickered and swayed, painting stories in the air, stories of peaceful journeys, quiet dreams, and moments stretched into infinity. The traveler listened, heart slow and steady, absorbing the calm that filled the space. Outside, the village breathed in the silence between the fire's flickers, a lullaby without words sung by the earth itself. As the night deepened, the traveler felt their worries dissolve into the air like mist, leaving only a profound sense of belonging. They closed their eyes, carried away by the gentle rhythm of the village's song, drifting on waves of calm that promised rest beyond time. When they opened their eyes, dawn was softening the sky, coloring it with hues of pale lavender and rose. The figure beside the fire smiled gently and whispered, "Rest is never far, for here, time sleeps." The traveler rose, stepping back into the soft morning light, feeling lighter, renewed, and cradled by the village's endless dream. The traveler stepped out into the morning light, feeling the gentle warmth settle over them like a tender embrace. The village seemed to awaken slowly, each moment unfurling like a petal reaching toward the sun. The air was crisp and sweet, carrying the scent of blooming jasmine and fresh earth. As they wandered down a path lined with delicate lanterns swaying gently without wind, the traveler noticed that the colors around them had deepened, rich and soft as if painted in watercolor dreams. They passed by a garden where butterflies made of light fluttered lazily from flower to flower, their wings leaving trails of shimmering dust that drifted like whispers on the breeze. Near a pond that mirrored the sky, the traveler found a small wooden boat tethered to a post carved from driftwood and moonbeams. The boat rocked softly, inviting. Without hesitation, the traveler climbed in and settled among cushions woven from clouds and starlight. The boat pushed off gently, drifting across the still water, its passage silent and smooth as a breath held in sleep. The pond reflected not just the sky above, but visions of places the traveler had never been, fields where colors sang, forests that hummed softly, and skies filled with stars that danced like flames. As the boat glided forward, the edges of the pond blurred, and the traveler felt themselves dissolving into the dreamscape, the line between water and sky melting away. Above, constellations shifted into new patterns, shapes that told stories of rest and renewal, of peace found in the spaces between heartbeats. The traveler leaned back, the cushions cradling them like a lullaby sung in a language without words. The gentle rocking of the boat and the quiet ripple of the water combined into a symphony of stillness, each note a thread weaving them deeper into the fabric of the village's endless dream. Time stretched wide and soft, folding around the traveler like a slow, gentle tide. Somewhere distant, a bell tolled once, deep and warm, signaling not an end but a continuation, a promise that here, in this village where time sleeps, peace was never fleeting. The traveler closed their eyes and let the dream carry them onward, a silent journey through the heart of calm. The boat drifted gently across the pond's glassy surface, carrying the traveler deeper into the realm where waking and dreaming intertwined like threads in a tapestry. The air was filled with a quiet hum, a melody without words that vibrated softly against the skin like a whispering breeze. Stars above shimmered faintly, reflecting in the water below and creating twin skies that stretched beyond sight. As the traveler leaned back, the cushions beneath them cradled every curve, as if the village itself had molded them from its own softness. The boat moved slowly, not guided by oars or engine but by the gentle pulse of time resting. Around the edges of the pond, willow branches dipped to kiss the water, their leaves shimmering with silver light. Nearby, lanterns floated silently, casting a warm glow that shifted and swayed like a dream caught between waking and sleep. The traveler's thoughts softened, dissolving like mist at dawn, carried away by the current of calm that surrounded them. As the boat glided forward, shapes emerged in the water, faint outlines of forgotten moments, hopes long held quietly in the heart, and dreams folded carefully like paper cranes. Each image shimmered and shifted, inviting the traveler to touch but never to grasp. Above, the sky slowly brightened with the soft blush of morning, though the pond remained wrapped in twilight's gentle embrace. The traveler felt a presence beside them, not a person, but a warmth, a sense of welcome that settled like a blanket around their shoulders. They closed their eyes and breathed deeply, feeling the village's quiet promise wrap around them. Here, in this place where time sleeps, peace is endless, and rest is a gentle song sung forever. The boat slowed to a stillness, and the traveler's heart matched the village's slow, steady rhythm. When they finally opened their eyes, the shore had come close again, the village waiting with open arms and a lullaby that never ended. The traveler stepped from the boat onto the soft shore, feeling the earth beneath their feet pulse gently with the village's slow heartbeat. Around them, the world shimmered with the quiet glow of dawn. Not sharp or bright, but a soft unfolding of light that wrapped everything in a warm embrace. The village greeted them with familiar sights and sounds, the hum of leaves brushing softly against one another, the distant laughter of unseen children playing in slow motion, the delicate scent of flowers blooming in colors that whispered peace. They wandered down a winding path lined with lanterns that floated lazily, their light flickering like quiet breaths. The path led to a small square where a fountain bubbled with water that sparkled like liquid light. Around the fountain, people sat on benches carved from ancient stone, their faces calm and serene as if caught in a gentle dream. The traveler took a seat among them, feeling the softness of the stone cradle their tired body. The air was filled with a melody, soft and wordless, woven from the rustle of leaves, the murmur of water, and the quiet beating of countless hearts at rest. Time here was not measured in minutes or hours but in the gentle unfolding of moments, each one a petal opening slowly in the light. As the traveler breathed deeply, the village seemed to lean in, holding them with the kindness of a lullaby sung just for one. The sky above shimmered with colors that shifted like a slow dance, pale blues melting into soft pinks, golds blending into gentle purples, a slow, endless dream painted across the heavens. With a heart softened by peace, the traveler closed their eyes and let the village's quiet song carry them deeper into rest, knowing that here, in this place where time sleeps, they were home. The traveler felt the last threads of wakefulness slip away like petals falling into a still pond. Around them, the village settled into a hush deeper than silence, a peaceful pause that held the weight of every gentle moment that had come before. The soft glow of lanterns dimmed gradually, casting the world in a tender twilight that wrapped everything in comfort. In this quiet, the traveler understood what the village had always been, a sanctuary woven from the dreams and sighs of those who longed for rest beyond time. The houses, the paths, the floating lights, all were part of a lullaby sung by the earth itself, a song that carried on beyond sight and sound. With a final breath, the traveler closed their eyes, sinking fully into the soft embrace of the village's endless dream. There was no hurry, no need to move or speak. Just the slow, steady rhythm of a heart at peace, the gentle sway of time as it slept. And somewhere, far beyond waking, the traveler smiled softly, cradled by a world where every moment was a quiet gift, and every dream a gentle journey home.